We've held on to our culture now, oh, for so long. Though times have changed, we remain the same. We listen to our elders, they know the way. We are the Iroquois, we're proud, we are strong. We've held on to our culture now, oh, for so long. Though times have changed, we remain the same. We listen to our elders, they know the way.
Today, bought Arjwe Nangung, Gavak Kinuej Evok Ananguk. I can see to the other side of the stars. The stars will guide you. Ndip tam Arjwe Nangung, Gaganunda Guk Nanguk. I can hear the other side of the stars. The stars will hear you. Gog again Gadep Tagus. Timeless is my voice.
Yo, yo, hey, ya, ne, no, hi-yo. Ayo, hey, ya, ne, no, hi-yo. Ayo, hey, ya, ne, no, hi-yo. Way, ya, hey, yo.
And the land is sacred. You don't live off of it like a parasite. You live in it, and it in you, or you don't survive. And that is the only worship of God there is.
Ayo, hey, ya, ne, no, hi-yo. Ayo, hey, ya, ne, no, hi-yo. Way, ya, hey, yo.
The soil that you see is not ordinary soil. It is the dust of the blood and the bones of our ancestors. To get to the real earth, you have to go through the upper portion. That upper portion is Crow Indian.
This is the story of a family, of the Great Spirit, of Mother Earth, and her children, of how they became the dispossessed in the war against the Indians. They are the living masks of memory, and with memory comes knowledge, a memory of where the native people believe they began. Our witness, Gloria Kramer Webster.
I remember coming home from school and saying to my father that I was taking an anthropology course in which we learned that we were supposed to have come across the Bering Straits. And my father and others laughed and said, well, no, that's not true. We know where we came from. Our family came from the river, from a sea monster and a thunderbird. Doesn't have anything to do with Bering Straits. And much later, when I was back at the university teaching, there was a young Indian student who, when he heard this Bering Straits theory, got quite upset and said, well, Jesus, now they're trying to make second-class Chinamen out of us. Our first ancestors were some supernatural creature.
Oh,
Blackfoot legal scholar Leroy Little Bear.
The Indians have always been here. As far as the Indians know, creation started here. You know, human beings came into existence here. They've been here from time immemorial. You will find that in some of the mythology of the Indians, just like my people, talk about creation starting with the stars, you know, the cosmos, and some of those spirits up in the sky, you know, the stars and so on, marrying. And they had, you know, in our case, they had 2 sons out of a particular marriage. One of those sons stayed here in North America, and the other son, see, it simply says in the story, went across the water from where the sun rises. Now, that son that went across the water was going to return. So, when the white people, when the Europeans appeared on the shores, it was that expectation, you know, and that's the reason why they were welcomed with open arms.
It is, as tides flow, a short time, 500 years since contact was made. Now, that story by the descendants of those who lived it, those who suffered it, in their own voices and at the very locales where it all began.
Actor Graham Greene.
Some legends say that our people, the red people, the four colors of people, the yellow, black, red, and white, the red people were in charge of looking after the earth. They were to be her guardian. The yellow people were in charge of the sea, the waters. The black people were in charge of the air. And the white people were given the gift of fire. And somewhere along the line, it got way out of balance.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
Camry was a success story from the start. Acclaimed best car built in America. Its reputation for quality craftsmanship made Camry the gold standard. It ranked among the top 10 in initial quality 6 years in a row. And Camry is built in a plant in Georgetown, Kentucky, the recipient of the Gold Plant Quality Award. And now the newly styled and refined 1995 Toyota Camry continues to write the book.
You love how new we're looking. You love how hot we're cooking. Yeah. You love the stuff we're made of.
There's a whole new spirit at Pizza Hut. That's why from now on, your pizza will be right or it's free. Guaranteed.
You love the stuff. You love the stuff. You love the stuff we're made of. You love the stuff we're made of. Pizza Hut.
I'm an inventor of one of the world's strongest fibers, Kevlar. I started the work in 1964. It proved to be a time of great joy, of frustration. We called it Fiber B. Kevlar is 5 times as strong as steel. It's used in ski racing, in helmets, golf tennis rackets, bullet resistant vests. I'm still working for DuPont. Every day is a new learning experience.
It's out there. A fortune in jewels, tons of gold. Circle the globe in search of your dreams with the Treasure Hunters. Tuesdays at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central on the Discovery Channel.
Why have the biggest stars in Hollywood trusted their hair to Lori Davis? Lori's ultralight leave-in detangler conditioning spray instantly detangles. It cuts the drying time and fortifies your hair from within, protecting it from heat damage without weighing it down. Now, for the first time ever, Lori's products are available in stores at 50% off her salon prices. So see for yourself the incredible difference Lori Davis products can make with your hair.
To sculpt the perfect body requires the right tools. The Soloflex muscle machine. 32 real weightlifting exercises without all the hassles of free weights. It gives you the tools you need to get the body you want for just $39 a month. Call now for a free brochure and video.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
It is an October day, a Friday, the 12th. The year is 1492. 3 ships will change the world as it is known then. 3 ships that have departed from Palos, Spain, the day before Spain expelled its entire Jewish population and ordered its Muslims to embrace Christianity. In Europe, it is a violent, intolerant time. 90 men on 3 ships led by the Admiral of the Ocean Seas called Coulon, who we know as Christopher Columbus, have sailed into a kind of paradise. From the Diary of Columbus.
The island is so green, it is a pleasure to look at, and its people are very gentle. Your Highness may believe that in all the world there can be no better or gentler people. They are quite lacking in evil and not warlike. I believe that they would become Christians very easily, for it seemed to me they had no religion. I seek gold and precious stones.
And so the goal of gold and conversion to an alien faith was set from the start. A land to be plundered, a people to be harvested. One of the few surviving Carib Indians, Garnet Joseph.
Well, frankly, I feel that Columbus, for some people, is a hero, doesn't mean anything to the Carib people. Or on the 3rd of December in 1493, Columbus sighted our island, which at that time we call Waitukubuli in the Carib language. And on his first voyage, Columbus came in contact with the Carib people off the island of St. Thomas. And it wasn't friendly contact. And at that time, on that occasion, what Columbus got from our Carib people was a shower of arrows.
The day, the event, the man would be glorified. Daly saw Columbus as a hero of all time. The people Columbus had mistakenly called Indians see something very different. Playwright Thompson Highway.
Well, I mean, it's laughable that he discovered us. I mean, we weren't exactly sitting around waiting to be discovered.
Truth be known, we found these guys half-starved, washed up on the beach. And, well, oh, you poor sods, come here, you know. And cured them, and look what happened.
When Columbus came over, he acted as if he had discovered people living on the moon, as opposed to the world, and thought we were Martians and, you know, aliens, therefore should be treated equally as alien entities.
Columbus had a hollow heart, says Cherokee artist Jimmy Durham.
He was a liar, he was a crook, he was a murderer. He was totally self-delusionary. I think he was basically a monster crazy man. And he certainly didn't discover anything under any terms.
To be discovered, someone must be lost. And the question is, who was lost and who was found? Columbus's voyages were confined to the Caribbean area. He never set foot on or saw the North American continent itself. This is the way it was. Several hundred years before Columbus, there were the talking rocks, legends and histories told by a people steeped in a faith that was inseparable from the earth they called Mother and the force they called the Great Spirit. There were then perhaps 2 million, some say as many as 15 million of them, maybe 500 or so tribes.
Today we can find our messages, our dictionaries out there on the hills that we see, the formation of the rocks, the animals that they have drawn on rocks, and all those things are leaving us messages of the past of our people, how they lived in harmony, how they were able to identify. And in there we have sacred things.
To the north, a separate people, the Inuit, we have called Eskimo. Their own saga of their voyage from the past carved in stone. Faces of a people and history and art that became the model for the moderns. And this is their dance. Rosie Oakpick is an Inuit elder.
I think it's all of us there in the Northwest Territories. Because my ancestors, when you're really looking at them, oh, they were strong, very, very strong. They survived in the very cold weather. And they didn't have this kind of house. I sometimes I wonder, who do I say thank you to that my ancestors were survived in that country? They didn't have everything what we have today.
In the south, the Navajo and the Hopi, rich in culture, government, and art. Caves that indicate a civilization before civilization. The Hopi elder, Thomas Banyaka, tells of his people.
Well, Hopi means peaceful people. Word Hopi is humble person, truthful. And they live in what is now called Arizona, northeast corner of Arizona, just east of Grand Canyon area. Because the Hopi believe that within that Four Corners area, four states coming together, is a very sacred spiritual center. It's surrounded by four sacred mountains. On top of them are sacred shrines that were built by our ancestors long time ago. And those mountains represent to the edges of land in four directions. So actually, Hopi land is all over this Western Hemisphere.
Oh, the native people would have covered pretty well the entire area of North America, although not as densely populated as we would, as it is today. But nevertheless, they were well spaced out, and because they were largely hunting and gathering type of societies, they used pretty well all of the land that we now know as North America.
I have a good idea of Cherokee population, but this is from my own personal studies, and if I say it to white Americans, it sounds too outrageous. But I'm not an outrageous guy. I'm not an exaggerated guy. I think about 1 million Cherokees, minimum.
Cherokee alone. And they were in what part of North America specifically?
This is another problem, but I think I can prove to any anthropologist that we were from close to Chesapeake Bay down to what is now northern Florida, all the way over through Georgia and Tennessee. Great, huge chunk of the southeast of the U.S. was originally Cherokee territory. The Indians of the Americas are the world's farmers, much more than any Asian culture or any European culture. We were That is our genius, I think.
Along with a harmony with the land, they had established complex relationships with each other. In the Great Plains, the Sioux, the Crow, and the Cheyenne.
There were many tribes here in this part of the world, in this hemisphere, and our tribes are nations, just like the nations of the world on the other side of the globe. So in that respect, we were no different. We traded with one another. We competed with one another for agricultural lands and for choice hunting grounds. We competed, we traded, and at times we warred. And at times we had peace. We formed alliances.
Wars did take place between various tribes and slaves were taken. War games were seen by native peoples on the prairies anyhow quite differently. The objective was not to kill somebody. The objective was to humiliate your opponent. I think to kill somebody was so difficult to understand, to take the death of somebody, because they were put on this earth for several reasons. So certainly you could hate somebody or dislike somebody, but you could do that in different ways.
Leroy Little Bear, Blackfoot blood, a scholar of the land.
The idea of owning the land was one of collective ownership, okay? But there's a little bit more to it than simply saying collective ownership. Because Native people think of all creation as being animate, it means then that these trees were around have a soul in them, have a spirit. Even the rocks have spirit. And in the same way that all animals, for instance, have spirit. And we all, we're simply part of this much larger picture of creation.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
This portion of Discovery is brought to you in part by Mazda.
The all-new Mazda Protege is an unusually safe car. Because on top of its dual airbags, it has a unique frame designed to help pass the impact of a head-on collision around the passenger cabin instead of through it. The all-new Mazda Protege. When it came to safety, we didn't spare a thing. Mazda.
I'll bet you worked with a lot of big stars.
Big stars?
Directing for HBO. Look, there's James Garner. Didn't you work with him on Barbarians at the Gate?
That was yours? I could not take my...
Can you introduce me?
Jimmy is a private person.
Darryl Hammond.
We dated, briefly.
Robert Duvall. Didn't you work with him for HBO?
Oh, yeah. We didn't hit it off.
Dennis Hopper.
Hopper? Ooh, he's a lunatic. A lot of trouble on the set. I mean, the guy's nuts.
Excuse me. Do I know you?
I'm me. You're you.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Big stars talked about movies. HBO makes them, and you don't want to miss them.
I'll never lie again.
Excuse me. I heard you make movies for HBO?
Yes. Yes, I do.
When you want a hot meal without a big deal, what are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets. When a hungry bunch shows up for lunch, what are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets.
Hot Pockets, filled with delicious pepperoni pizza, chicken and cheddar, or ham and cheese in a crispy pocket.
When it's late at night and you want a tasty bite, what are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets.
The hot meal in a pocket.
What are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets.
Try Lean Pockets, too. Throat needs soothing? Reach for new Celestial Seasoning Soothers. Real fruit juice flavor in all natural herbal throat drops. Not too sweet, not too strong. Sore throat relief that's just right. Celestial Seasoning Soothers.
Thursday on the Discovery Channel. Can psychic powers solve crimes? On Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe. Shamans heal wounds and predict the future on Magical Worlds. Optical illusions on Movie Magic. Skyscraper cities on the No Zone. And virtual reality driving on Beyond 2000. Thursday beginning at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on the Discovery Channel.
return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
So this was the land Columbus stumbled on, even though he never touched foot on the American continent. And these were the people he said had no religion, who he said he would harvest as slaves and converts for the Queen that October day in 1492.
They would make fine servants, and they are intelligent. I believe they could easily be made Christians, for they appear to have no idols.
But Columbus was no better judge of personality than he was navigator. He converted not one Indian, and in the rape and lust that followed from his brother Diego and his men in their empty search for gold, the entire population of Arawak Indians perished, either from having their hands cut off for not producing gold dust, which did not exist, from suicide with cassava poison out of desperation, or disease imported by the exploiting whites. Perhaps 500,000 Indians perished. Some say as many as 6 million died.
The population was wiped out very fast. I mean, in Dominican Republic or in Hispaniola, within 50 years, the population was almost completely wiped out. And they were hanged. They were hanged in numbers of 13 in honor of the 12 disciples and Jesus Christ. And they were burnt with green wood so that the Spanish people could enjoy their Christ longer.
A great native nation vanished. The land ransacked of its wealth. It is only 8 years after the admiral has arrived to a friendly native embrace, and the age of exploration had only just begun. The brave new world seems hardly brave in the war against the Indians. It's not so much a paradise found and lost as a paradise stumbled on, a paradise perverted, a paradise almost destroyed. The Vikings, of course, had come and gone, perhaps assuming this was no place to stay. The challenge of Columbus is soon met by others, sailing for other monarchs, but always with the same goal: gold. The most complete description of the time will come from Giovanni da Verrazzano, traveling for France, who will be the first European to enter New York Bay on the Hudson River.
The land-in situation is of goodness and beauty. This is the most beautiful people and the most civilized that we have found in this navigation.
We do not know what the natives thought of him, but we are told that Verrazzano died on an island off the coast of South America in 1528, killed and eaten by Carib Indians in sight of his crew, perhaps a reaction to the exploits of Columbus. The Spanish succeeded in planting settlements in North America during the 16th century, but the English and the French succeeded only with the help of the Indian cures. These are the words of George Seaweed.
It was just a natural gesture that the Indians made, and which they would have towards any group of people. They noticed that these people they were suffering from some kind of lack of fresh nutrients, fresh food, and they pulled out bark from a cedar tree, or probably from a white spruce tree. And they used up the bark of a big tree in little time, and they cured these people.
Sir Walter Raleigh founded a colony of Roanoke, and it vanished. Smith tried again at Jamestown, and then the Pilgrims, and with them the Europeans, brought disease. The righteous Puritans thought of the plague as a sign that God was on their side, and one of them still mourned.
The bones and skulls made such a spectacle that as I traveled in that forest near Massachusetts, it seemed to me a newfound Golgotha.
The fur traders and settlers head west, assuming it to be, of course, empty space. The living Indian culture is ignored or destroyed. Progress is a kind of punishment for guiding hands. It was convenient to think of all Indians as savages, and thus progress, European style, was of course an advantage. The settlers working their way west simply ignored the tribes if they could.
If you were going to a land, a beautiful land, and try to take that, you would have to condemn the culture there, the language, everything they did, because we're superior and we'll replant that and do away with the savages and make almost a utopia there, you know.
When possible, they used native skills once they had taken their lands in the east. And this was the case of Phil Fontaine's family. He's the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs.
They had moved westward with the trade. They were the canoe. They were the paddlers. They were the, they did the work. And so anyone that moved out here moved pretty well in the same way. If they didn't come with the church, they came with the fur trade. This area was noted for its prime stands of birch. So it is a place where our people and others would congregate to repair their canoes or build new canoes. And during the height of the fur trade, of course, a good place for, because it is a departure point for pemmican. The pemmican supplies that moved out, see, with the traders and the Indians that worked on the fur trade. There's fierce competition in our area between the Norwest Company, the Hudson's Bay, and the free traders, and the churches. You had smallpox and other diseases, and I recall reading about some of the epidemics that would move just so quickly, through the lake. And most of our people, of course, if not all, lived by the water, the Winnipeg River, Lake Winnipeg, and any waterway, because that was their way of traveling.
The settlers brought with them the animals that could change the ways of the Plains Indians. Caught in Paint by Gerald McMaster, a Cree. When people think of Indians, they think of horses. It seems to be just a part of...
Immediately, yes. We call them Mistatim, or big dog. And I felt that when I was thinking about the term Mistatim, as you know, or at least archaeologists inform us that they have actually found skeletons of an animal the size of a dog, with cloven hoofs, or a hoof, not cloven hoof, but rather a hoof, which existed in prehistoric times. And I think that they felt that the horse obviously disappeared, but whether or not it actually went back towards Europe that way through the Bering Strait, it's unknown. But anyhow, there was an indication by archaeologists that a horse existed. So in fact, that the horse may have existed here, and it could be an old term from way back then. So you have this return of the horse, return of the big dog, and it completely changed the lifestyle of my ancestors overnight.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
Where the search begins, where truth is revealed, where history is our guide. Fact meets fiction. Terra X. Tuesdays at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on the Discovery Channel.
The all-wheel drive cars from Subaru. It only takes a moment to appreciate their beauty. a moment like this, or like this. The very moment it takes Subaru all-wheel drive to instantly transfer power from the wheels that slip to the wheels that grip, giving you the traction you need to help you stay out of trouble. Because we believe the best safety feature a car can have is one that can help you stay out of an accident.
A sparkling ship on crystal waters is coming.
For me, that island was something I'll never forget.
A once-in-a-lifetime is coming.
It's like incredible. I mean, it was just a gift from the captain. What I found so wonderful is that, I mean, like, we adored our waiters. They would do anything for us. Any time, come in.
Discovery is coming.
It was fun. He was telling me how to steer the boat and how to make it faster.
You know, it's magic for me. I had a connection with all those people.
Stories to share forever are coming.
We loved it. I didn't want to come home.
A new friendship is coming.
Archie teaches you like this and just jump like a frog. I wish I could do that.
Memories are coming.
Every night's a different show. It's amazing.
You've got some Royal Caribbean coming.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
When the settlers come in, the Europeans come in, they hunted the buffalo for the hides. The hides were worth $100 back in them days. And they were selling them down east to factories where they use them for belt drives, according to what they were telling me. There were so many buffalo that there was just like a sport where the white people hunt them for game. Some took the heads for trophies, but most of it, the meat was wasted out on the land. They figured if they do away with the buffalo, so will they do away with the Indian, because that's the Indian's main source of food, his main source of clothes, his main source of his teepee. But the Indian, he's still here, the Blackfeet Indian is still here to tell the story of the history of his people, how he survived from the beginning and right up to the present day. Today, he's still here, and I'm proud to talk about my people and how he survived in this buffalo jump, which you see here today. The Indian, he respects the land. Mother Earth is where your body comes from.
The great Rocky Mountains becomes a barrier for the Western Trek. Beyond them, a complex civilization flourished. Captain James Cook, an English naval officer and explorer, lands on Vancouver Island in 1778. Captain George Vancouver surveys English Bay, the present site of the city of Vancouver. It is 1792. The intruders are greeted by the inhabitants. Some have said, perhaps that was a mistake. Bill Wilson.
The reality is that our hospitality, which is the integral part of our culture, prohibited us from killing them. And they wouldn't have survived without us.
The explorer found the coast was populated by many tribes.
People living in quite small communities up and down the coast, being totally dependent on resources from primarily the sea, and to a lesser extent the land, utilizing those resources without waste, because people believe that if you mistreated the animals or the trees, that they just might go away and you wouldn't have them to enjoy anymore. White people thought that we worshipped totem poles. We didn't. They were like a coat of arms. They told people who you were and where you belonged. There wasn't worship in the way that white people talk about worship. I think more there was simply being thankful for what surrounded you, for what you were given. Respect for that environment, knowing that there weren't just human beings in this world, that there were supernatural creatures who must be treated with respect. Things like thunderbirds and wild people of the woods, of the ocean, cannibal birds. Those are not ordinary creatures, and yet they were very much part of ceremonial life. A thunderbird looks like an eagle, except that it has these kinds of horns. It feeds on whales. When it flaps its wings, it causes thunder. When it blinks its eyes, it causes lightning.
Missionary made his target the unique ceremony of potlatch.
The word potlatch is from trade jargon that was used in the early days on this coast, called Chinook, and it means to give. And potlatches were and are given still to mark special occasions, special events, marriage, to mourn the dead, to name children, to celebrate the raising of a pole.
Why was potlatch banned? I don't understand that.
Basically, I think it was pretty heavy competition for what the missionaries were trying to do. When people were at potlatches for weeks and months, they weren't going to this church. Their children weren't in this school. They were carrying on as they always had.
We had such a strong culture, and we had such a strong religion that they sought the need from government and other people to outlaw the potlatch. And they actively outlawed the potlatch in the manner that you might say to a Jewish person, you can't go to the synagogue, I'm sorry, or to a Catholic person, you cannot have Mass. That's what they did to us. And the attempt really was to eliminate the strong foundation of our culture, which is the potlatch, to make us non-Indians.
There was no physical genocide that was practiced in Canada, as far as I know, in the Western Canada. But they had much more subtle means of destroying the people, and it was as though an invading army came into Vancouver or Toronto or someplace like that and said, you have to give up your churches, which wouldn't be a big thing these days, but would be before, and stop living as an extended family and build individual houses for nuclear family use, and burn all your books and never speak your language again, and every convention by which you governed your life would be forbidden to you, and you had to start in all over again.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
We changed the way you saw the world. Now we've made a world of changes. Introducing the new Ford Explorer, the only leading sport utility with standard dual airbags. The only one with control track four-wheel drive for instant traction control automatically. Plus an engine that lets you go 100,000 miles before your first tune-up. The new Ford Explorer. Far and away, the best the world has to offer.
Over the last few years, a lot of people have seen their investments drop in value. Unfortunately, that's life. Our annuities have held their value and consistently paid higher rates than CDs. That's New York Life. New York Life, the company you keep.
He craves that taste, that big, bold cranberry taste, that one-of-a-kind ocean spray taste.
Spencer Christian here, weatherman, world traveler. Imagine 5 cities in 5 days. Well, I won't be imagining it, I'm doing it. But first, I gotta pack.
Spencer's great North to South adventure on Good Morning America, next week on ABC.
You love how new we're looking. You love how hot we're cooking. Yeah. You love the stuff we made up.
There's a whole new spirit at Pizza Hut. That's why from now on, your pizza will be right or it's free. Guaranteed.
You love the stuff. You love the stuff. You love the stuff we're made of. You love the stuff we're made of. Pizza Hut.
Thursday on the Discovery Channel. Can psychic powers solve crimes? On Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe. Shamans heal wounds and predict the future on Magical Worlds. Optical illusions on Movie Magic. Skyscraper cities on the No Zone. And virtual reality driving on Beyond 2000. Thursday beginning at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on the Discovery Channel.
This is you. This is the commercial you see. This is the number you call. This is the operator you talk to. This is the stuff that arrives. This is the number you call. This is the box that comes. This is the machine you get. This is the number you call. These are the exercises you do. This is the number you call. This is how long it takes. This is how many times a week you do it. This is the number you call. This is how your dog looks at you. This is how your pants fit. This is the number you call. This is how you'll feel when you're done. This is the number you call. The SoloFlex Muscle Machine. Just $39 a month. Call now for a free brochure and video. This is the number you call.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
There was a sense of urgency that caught painters such as George Catlin of America and Paul Kane of Canada to paint the West before it was lost, before the white men had destroyed it all. In contrast to the explorers who talked of the Aborigines as savages, Catlin saw them as a people deprived of their freedom through the expansion of the so-called European civilization. He crusaded for them and spoke of them lovingly.
I love a people who have always made me welcome to the best they had. Who are honest without laws, who have no jails and no poorhouse, never take the name of God in vain, who worship God without a Bible, and I believe that God loves them also, who are free from religious animosities, who have never raised a hand against me or stolen my property, where there was no law to punish either, who never fought a battle with white men except on their own ground. And how I love a people who don't live for the love of money.
Also, by the middle of the 19th century, a photographer was beginning to record the Indian. For so many in the East, the West became real. There were conflicting cultures, a clash of cultures. The paintings of the day depicted the settler as noble and his adventure as God-blessed.
shortly after Confederation, when John A. Macdonald, in fear of the United States annexing what is now Western Canada, promised to build a railroad westward to British Columbia. And it was as though the government, in their hurry to build this railroad, in a way almost forgot, hey, there's some Indians out there, how are we going to deal with them? And the Indians were kind of in the way of the railroad building. So they ended up signing a whole bunch of treaties with the Indians for promises from the, as a means of getting promises from the Indians that they were not going to interfere with the railroad building.
The Indians became game like animals for the new breed of cowboy.
Now, instead of them being the hunters, a lot of them became the hunted. Particularly in the States, they had a hard time.
They called it the Trail of Tears. Under armed guard, the Indians were herded off their traditional lands. 16,000 Cherokees were moved this way, and as many as a quarter of them died on the journey, and they were dumped into Oklahoma.
Every Indian nation in the U.S. certainly has had its own Trail of Tears. All of us in the Southeast, originally from the Southeast, especially the people who are officially called the 5 civilized tribes, which means the other tribes are what? Savages? We were quickly in the way. We were in the way early on. From the 1820s through the 1840s, the 5 civilized tribes of the U.S. Southeast were forcibly removed to Oklahoma Territory with a huge loss of life. Forced marches, as other Indian people later had to do. We were the first to go through it. But we weren't the first to have a Trail of Tears, certainly. Beginning about 1600, every 10 years, we lost half of our population. All Indians on the East Coast. Every 10 years, you lose half of your population. For 300 years. And finally, you wind up with not even 98% of your original population. And what that does to you culturally, you don't really recognize. If Canada today lost 98% of its population, or half of its population, or a third of its population, it means losing half of your doctors, half of your teachers, half of your scientists, half of your children. It means a cultural loss, not just a physical loss. That war in the U.S. was more than 200 years long. Constant battling at us, constantly killing us.
Some Indian bands were able to fight against overpowering odds of superior gunpowder. After one battle, 303 Sioux were condemned to death by the New Americans. Since they had no rights, they had no lawyer at the military trial. Abraham Lincoln himself intervenes. He reduces the number to be hanged to 38. It is the day after Christmas. In the moon, when the deer shed their horns, 38 are hung. One of those who had saved a white woman's life during the raid. So the great emancipator actually gives the order to America's greatest mass execution. There will be many meetings between white leaders and Indians, many treaties, and many pleas that will not be heard.
Our people believing
that the other side was just and honorable and would respect their own laws, would respect the agreements, were really fooled into that. And that was not a fatal mistake, but a real error in judgment that has cost us dearly.
We know that if we do not sell, the white man may come with guns and take our land. How can you buy or sell the sky, the warmth of the land? The idea is strange to us. If we do not own the freshness of the air and the sparkle of the water, how can you buy them? Every part of this earth is sacred to my people. Every shining pine needle, every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every clearing, and humming insect is holy in the memory and experience of my people. The rocky crests, the juices of the meadows, the body heat of the pony, and man, all belong to the same family. So when the great chief in Washington sends word that he wishes to buy our land, he asks much of us.
I have heard that you intend to settle us on the reservation near the mountains. I don't want to settle. I love to roam over the prairies. There I feel free and happy, but when we settle down, we grow pale and die.
I was born upon the prairie where the winds blew free and there was nothing to break the light of the sun. I was born where there were no enclosures and where everything drew a free breath. I want to die there and not within walls.
And so we've come to this frontier. Next, we'll see what happens when we go to the Grand Canyon, when we move on to Wounded Knee and the Custer battlefield, and we tell the story up to date in this, the War Against the Indians.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
This portion of Discovery is brought to you in part by Toyota.
From its idealized engineering to its sculpted aerodynamics, it has been designed to be as beautiful to drive as it is to look at. The 1995 Toyota Celica, including the all-new convertible. What else would you expect from a company that approaches manufacturing as an art? Our ancestors had a tradition of caring for others in tribal communities. Responsibilities were shared that bound the tribe together. This is the spirit in all of us. Today, the people of Dow are joining Habitat for Humanity in communities like the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation, sharing their skills, donating Dow home insulation, working alongside people they've never met, building new homes and new hope.
Legends, secrets, tales.
Timeless questions.
Conquest, journey.
Relics of a forgotten past. Do we have the answers?
Rituals, rites. Fragments, documents, clues.
Where the search begins. Where truth is revealed. Where fact meets fiction. Terra X. Tuesdays at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. On the Discovery Channel.
Then, it's out there. A fortune in jewels, tons of gold. Circle the globe in search of your dreams with the Treasure Hunters. Tuesdays at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central on the Discovery Channel. We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
Navajos in their religious saying that they consider that the earth is their mother and the sun is the father. See, the sun sends powerful energy from the sun, and it hits them.
The War war against the Indians has a monumental setting and a place of almost mystic majesty in the American Southwest. The Grand Canyon, a place to contemplate history. The writer Samuel Butler said, "God cannot alter the past, but historians can." Now, we have been told and retold the European version of the land and legends of how we came to be here. History is a set of lies agreed upon, said Napoleon. And the poet William Carlos Williams added, history begins for us with murder and enslavement, not with discovery. The raw myths of our past. But the geography cannot be molded into convenient historical truth. Caves are still there, parched by the sun, a permanent record. There have been people living here since before time was recorded. Philosopher and artist Carl Gorman.
In Navajo, it's called a Anasazi. Anasazi is a Navajo word. Ana means stranger. Zazi, Saza. That means strange relatives. Anasazi.
Pueblo historian Joe Sando. Just how long ago was it that the Pueblo was first seen here?
In this area, the farthest that we've been able to decipher is 10,000 for many years, but recently some professor found some material which indicates 40,000 years ago. That is down south of here because the Pueblo people came from the south. And we came out from the Mexico, maybe the Tehuacan area of Mexico after the cultivation of corn, which was 34,000 BC. And after corn was cultivated, that made it possible for people to begin to travel, take corn with them.
The cliff dwellers left their caves, an ancient version of solar heating, and moved to villages. Why? A mystery. It was about the time of the arrival of the Spaniards, the conquistadors. With the arrival of the Spanish, the brutal tone of battle was set from the start, says Joe Santo.
Like any European, the attitude at the beginning was that they were going to dominate and do away with our culture and substitute and give us their culture. But it didn't last because they instituted some of their programs that they had in Europe, like the Encomida and the Repartimiento. And they supplemented another idea there that they would do away with our religion and give us theirs. And the Pueblos took it until 1680. In 1680, they revolted and threw the Spaniards out for 12 years. And when the Spaniards came back in 1692, it was with a different attitude. Consequently, today, we are the last of the Native Americans of North America who maintain a greater part of their culture as a result of that expulsion of the Spaniards at that time.
And how did the Navajo get along with the Spanish?
They used to call them Hispanic, and they were really friendful. But afterwards, the army came, the Spanish army came, and they were really the rough one. They saw that the Navajo start fighting them, and they fought for about 200 years. They never They never could conquer the Navajos. They used this hit and run fighting technique. And the Navajos thought that was the end of it. They thought this was their land and they were going to live here peacefully. But the government, the United States government took over the Navajo land again.
The United States government calls it manifest destiny. It is the spring of 1862, 370 years after Columbus, a period of almost continuous war. The American government sends in General James Carleton with stars on his shoulder to command the Bluecoats, the California column. He has a great passion for their land, and like Columbus, for its gold. These are Carleton's words.
The princely realm, magnificent pastorale and mineral country. As for the Navajos, they are wolves that run through the mountains and must be subdued. The men are to be slain wherever they can be found. The women and children may be taken as prisoners.
With his lieutenant, Kit Carson, once a friend of the Indians, Carleton pursues and starves the Navajos. The Navajos cannot believe that Carson condones scalping, which was introduced by the Spanish, and which they consider to be very savage.
Carleton, he was stationed in Santa Fe, and he was told to get into this Navajo country and see what we could do. And he was one of these guys that really was crazy for gold. And he wrote back, he was he toured the Navajo country, a certain part, and he wrote back to Washington and told him that the Navajos were sitting on precious stone. And what he meant was gold. And the only way we could get to these precious stones is to get the Navajos off their land. Well, they finally drove the Navajos to Fort Sumner and held them there 4 years. From Albuquerque is 300 miles due south. They lost quite a number of, especially older people, you know.
The Navajos will return to their land, fewer in number, with less territory. And the battle was not yet over for others and elsewhere on the great island of North America.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
At the start of a new millennium, you think about life. And we thought about a steel spine in the Mazda Millennia to keep the cabin exceptionally strong and life all it can be. The Millennia from Mazda. As time passes, we'll all have some rough road ahead. So we built the Mazda Millennia to have a smoother ride than even a Lexus ES300. The Millennia from Mazda.
Rauchen verboten.
不要抽烟。
Apagorevete, tocapisma.
タバコを吸わないでください。
Vietato fumare.
Cigarette fumare.
Défense de fumer.
In answer to our passengers' requests,
Prohibido fumar.
Delta Airlines has become the first and only U.S. airline to fly totally smoke-free worldwide.
Throat needs soothing? Reach for new Celestial Seasoning Soothers. Real fruit juice flavor in all natural herbal throat drops. Not too sweet, not too strong. Sore throat relief that's just right. Celestial Seasoning Soothers.
The blackening coil unwinds. In the darkness, nighthawks climb. As shadows creep, here we lie, in perfect sleep. Serta, we make the world's best mattress.
Thursday on the Discovery Channel. Can psychic powers solve crimes? On Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe. Shamans heal wounds and predict the future on Magical Worlds. Optical illusions on Movie Magic. Skyscraper cities on the No Zone. And virtual reality driving on Beyond 2000. Thursday beginning at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on the Discovery Channel.
Where can you find water that tastes like this? Canada? The Rockies? The Alps? Try Brooklyn, Chicago, Los Angeles. Because no matter where you live, you can get great tasting water with the Brita water filtration pitcher. Brita turns your tap water into water that tastes like this. And it's so easy to use. Just turn on the tap, fill the reservoir, and watch as the water passes through the patented filter. The silverized carbon reduces chlorine taste, odor, and sediment. And the special ion exchange process eliminates 93% of lead and reduces copper. The Brita unit comes with a lightweight, durable pitcher and patented replaceable filter good for 35 gallons. The end result? Water that tastes like this. And Brita is sold everywhere, along with a money-back guarantee. Call this number now for more details in the store nearest you. With Brita, you don't have to travel to great lengths to get great tasting water. It comes right from your tap. Brita, tap into great tasting water.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
There have been many poems, songs, paintings, and films about the battle that took place here at Little Bighorn on a blistering June Sunday in 1876.
The Indians were camped over here and they were celebrating. They just completed an annual Sundance to the east here, a few miles, and they were out hunting and they were coming together for an annual social function where they sing and dance.
Many versions of one story. Here on another Sunday, on a hot summer day, told by Dale Goes Four Times Kindness, a crow.
The United States Cavalry, under the direction of George Armstrong Custer, came over here and attacked a peaceful village of Sioux, Arapahoes, and Cheyennes. Basically, that's what happened in 1876 on that day. But the events leading up to it are controversial in many respects because of what different authors and so-called historians have analyzed as the results leading up to that assault on the Indians by the U.S. Cavalry. Gold was discovered in the Black Hills, the sacred land of the Dakota people, and that was one of the driving forces behind the events that led up to the attack on the Indians in 1876. The Sioux resisted the government's attempts to take away the Black Hills because of the discovery of gold. They resisted orders and demands to get off of their ancestral homelands and to change their way of life. They mutilated and they dismembered infants, American Indian infants. They cut their arms and legs and heads off. They bashed in the heads of infants. The military did that. And civilians, citizens of this country did that to American Indians. And then they just twisted the story around, as is the style of some historians and non-Indians. That's what they want to believe, because they're trying to justify in their own mind that the shame that they did in the treatment of American Indians somehow can be justified. But no matter how hard they try, if they're true people, if they have any link to a God, they know that what they did to the American Indians was shameful and unforgivable, and they can't really accept that, so they have to twist things around and make it look like the Indian was a savage, when in fact the Indian was more of a peaceful creature of nature who lived in harmony with nature. And the story that American Indians continually scalped non-Indians and did horrible things, terrible mutilations to them. If that did in fact happen, and I'm not denying that it may have happened, but it was a result of what the non-Indian did to the American Indian first and foremost. And it was more like a response. And it was based on anger and love and emotionalism for the people that were massacred and mutilated and scalped.
Was Custer just a bad soldier that he seemed to led himself into this massacre? That's what it was?
I think he was misguided, and it just depends upon your own interpretation of history. In my view, from my understanding and reading, he was crazy.
Just after Christmas in the year 1890, an era ended here at Wounded Knee in South Dakota, and stark grave markers under a lonely flag of truce are silent reminders of a terrible battle recalled by Dwayne Brewer.
100 years ago, Chief Bigfoot and his band of followers were coming to the Pine Ridge Agency. They were intercepted by the 7th Cavalry, escorted to this site. Of course, Bigfoot was coming in with under the flag of surrender, and they were asked to give up their weapons. Many of them did, but a shot was fired, and the cavalry began to open up on Bigfoot and his followers. Bigfoot was killed. Of course, Bigfoot was very sick and had pneumonia, and didn't resist at all, but he was still killed. Troops opened up on the people, and the Indians, of course, his followers began to have hand-to-hand battles with some of the troops, and of course they had the Hotchkiss guns up on top of the hill up here, and they began to open up on the people. A lot of the Bigfoot's people ran down into a ravine over here. Many of them didn't get that far. They were shot by the Hotchkiss guns. There are stories out that the 7th Cavalry was getting revenge for the Custer battle. We know it today as a massacre.
Were soldiers ever punished for committing this crime?
Never punished. They were awarded medals for what they done here. Massacred 187 people.
100 years ago. Now, this was, I think, the last Indian War?
The last Indian War.
A world ended that day at Wounded Knee.
They don't know what they've taken. Well, his dignity is gone. The bones, they are scattered, but his spirit, it lingers on.
There was no hope on earth, and God seemed to have forgotten us. Some said they saw the Son of God. Others did not see him. If he had come, he would do some great things as he had done before. We doubted it because we had seen neither him nor his works. The people did not know. They did not care. They snatched at the hope. They screamed like crazy men to him for mercy. They caught at the promise they heard he had made. The white men were frightened and called for soldiers. We had begged for life, and the white men thought we wanted theirs. We heard that soldiers were coming. We did not fear. We hoped that we could tell them our troubles and get help. The white man said the soldiers meant to kill us. We did not believe it, but some were frightened and ran away to the Badlands by Red Cloud.
Why? Tell me why.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
This portion of Discovery is brought to you in part by Puerto Rico Tourism.
Come and discover the continent of Puerto Rico. Discover the warmth of our tropical beaches, the wonders of our natural beauty, the legends of our centuries-old cities, and the challenges of everything you've ever wanted to do. Only a continent would offer so many great vacation experiences. Only Puerto Rico puts it all within your reach.
The all-new Subaru Impreza. We didn't just load it with safety features like dual airbags and anti-lock brakes. We loaded it with fun. A spirited new 135 horsepower engine harnessed to the ultimate safety feature. Subaru all-wheel drive, transferring power automatically from the wheels that slip to the wheels that grip. To help your Subaru stick to the road, and you stick to having a good time.
You love how new we're looking. You love how hot we're cooking. Yeah. You love the stuff we're made of.
There's a whole new spirit at Pizza Hut. That's why from now on, your pizza will be right or it's free. Guaranteed.
First thing you gotta remember about Disney World is to pace yourself. If you try to do it all at once, you'll be sleeping like a baby by lunchtime. Number 2, don't eat right before you go on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Number 3, Goofy is huge. Goofy could beat up Dad. I guess that's it. You're gonna love this place, Larry. It really brings out the kid in you.
Call 1-407-WDisney and make the dream come true.
We'll be leaving in about 3 weeks.
It's out there. A fortune in jewels. Tons of gold. Buried in secret locations. Hidden at the bottom of the sea. Meet the obsessed adventurers willing to risk it all for the chance to strike it rich. Circle the globe in search of your dreams with The Treasure Hunters. Tuesdays at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central on the Discovery Channel. Explore your world.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
The 20th century will introduce the cigar store Indian. Tricked, caged, confined, he will reluctantly pose as a relic of an imagined savage time. The chief keeper of the display Indian is an entrepreneur called Buffalo Bill.
What is the significance of Buffalo Bill to the native person? Is he a symbol of kind of a bizarre time?
It was, as the title indicates, the Wild West. I think that the Indian saw the West as quite wild, like the West is captured by Western civilization, and whereas Western civilization saw the Indian as quite wild, and again, as indicated in the terminology, and he was wild, the wild savage, and so each was looking at each other as quite wild. And in this particular one, I was looking at Buffalo Bill, and in just that name, Buffalo Bill, who had co-opted this idea that he was in fact the person that represented Hollywood at its earliest, so that he would relate to his non-native audience. The man, and of course, I think we're all quite familiar with the Buffalo Bill and the Wild West shows. And in them, he hired a lot of native peoples to work with him, primarily Sioux. And as I understand it, the famous leader, shaman, elder, Tatanka Eotanka, was also in the show. Tatanka Eotanka is Lakota for Sitting Bull. It sort of further put nails in the coffins of Indian culture by displaying native peoples this way.
Packed in plastic, some symbols of native authority and faith become distorted and confused. The 20th century is for the North American Indian, a time when governments try to wash out Indianness. an attempt to subvert the native faith, to eliminate his language and convince him that the European civilization is somehow superior. In Canada, he is called a ward of the crown. He is told all he has to do is reject his history, and he will somehow be taken care of. It is a twisted truth, and it finds its most offensive form in the residential school. Basil Johnson is a historian of his people. He wrote a book about his personal experience in residential schools, Indian School Days.
The reason why I was removed from my family is that my mother and father were separated. And this gave the clergy and the Indian Affairs branch an opportunity to remove me from home to this school so that eventually I would be so assimilated I would not go back. One of the factors, of course, that is forgotten in the whole business is the suffering, the anguish endured and inflicted upon women whose children were taken away from them.
Must have been agony.
My mother used, she never said a great deal. She said I cried. You know how many nights did she cry? My grandmother. How many other women cried? And how many nights did they cry? To have an agency come along and say to them, we're taking 2 of your children or all of your children. And there's not a thing that those women could do. I think I started to suspect that something was wrong the very first day that I was there when one of my clothing was taken away from me, that I was issued a uniform consisting of a beige shirt and a beige corduroy trousers and boots, and had my hair shorn. I began to feel maybe I was given away. Maybe I wasn't wanted. And that doubt was almost reinforced. At least something else was put on top of it. And that is the teaching of the church that you're a worthless person, that you're a sinner.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
This portion of Discovery is brought to you in part by DuPont.
I was driving down a road, and to my right there was a rather deep pothole. Pow! I survived. That's the problem. You want to prevent potholes. DuPont's technology can make a road which will last longer. The chemistry that we use to modify asphalt is similar to the chemistry that we use to make other products. We can change the molecule so that it can be used in perfume bottles, roller skates, bowling pins. We can make golf balls that spin better. That changed the game of golf. It was my idea. I feel like I've accomplished something, I guess.
Imagine a couple of Swedish engineers have dinner with a couple of German engineers. The Swedish engineers over herring talk about safety, while the German engineers over bratwurst talk about the joy of driving. And what do you think they'd end up with? Probably the new Volvo 960. Now the only question is, who's going to pick up the tab? The new 960 from Volvo.
In the 80s, a lot of companies invested their pension funds in questionable real estate. Unfortunately, that's life. In the 80s, we invested most of our pension funds in investment-grade bonds. That's New York Life. New York Life, the company you keep.
He craves that taste, that big, bold cranberry taste, that one-of-a-kind ocean spray taste.
The blackened coil unwinds. In the darkness, Nighthawks climb. As shadows creep, here we lie, in perfect sleep. Serta, we make the world's best mattress.
Where the search begins, where truth is revealed, where history is our guide. Fact meets fiction. Terra X. Tuesdays at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on the Discovery Channel.
It's out there. A fortune in jewels, tons of gold. Circle the globe in search of your dreams with the Treasure Hunters. Tuesdays at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central on the Discovery Channel.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
You called yourself Inmate 43, sir.
I was. That was my number. We all had numbers.
So you really felt as if you were in jail, it sounds as if you're saying.
Well, that's what it was. It was a damn prison for doing nothing. And it was the general belief, not only with the Catholic Church, but also with the Anglican Church and with the Methodist Church and Presbyterian and a number of other churches, that punishment was good for everybody. And there were things, a lot worse than strappings, or a blow on the head with a fist, a kick in the ass with a heavy boot, a fist, be knocked down.
Was there any sexual abuse?
There was. Hell, Mount Cashin was 20 years behind time. And a lot of that occurred way back in as early as the 30s and the 20s. And this is why Native people hated those institutions so damn much. They never said anything about this because nobody was going to believe you.
Métis artist Jim Logan paints the agony.
This painting's about basically the rounding up of our children in small villages at wherever we may have been. This one particularly is depicting a village of Ross River in Yukon Territory, where trucks came in and lists were given, to the priests before, and their names were called out, and they had to go. They had to leave their families and go. It was a law.
So it must have been a terrible thing for the women.
It was terrible for everyone. I got a picture. In the picture there, you'll see a grandma crying in the background. In the foreground, you got a young child crying also. To let you know this is an ongoing situation, that the grandma also experienced it, and the young child is also experienced it now and is going to experience it in the future. I guess in a lot of cases, children ran away at this time of the year, and they're always rounded up. They'd wait in the villages for days for these kids to come out of the bush until they're basically starved out or chilled out by the coming of frost and that time of the year. And they wouldn't relent. They grabbed those kids to make sure that they attend the school, because at that time it was the law. There was no way about it. No way about getting the kids to stay.
No escape, really.
No escape. No. And all of a sudden they were told that the spiritualism that they believed in was evil and not good, and that the only way for them to get to heaven was to believe in Christ. And through that system, they realized that they were indeed savages, and they were indeed a lower class of human being. Unfortunately, most of them took it to heart. Every week or so, the girls would save up money and they go to town with the nun, of course, and they go in and they would buy this makeup and sneak it out. Well, every once in a while they go for walks up in the bushes behind the residential school, and they'd run up way ahead of the nun, and they'd run into the bush and they try on this makeup.
The punishment and the penance for the girls. Crimes of loneliness. The pee parade. Carrying urine-soaked sheets over their heads. Crying and praying for forgiveness.
Maintenant est à l'heure de notre mort, ainsi soit-il.
Probably the most powerful one is that one called Night Visit. It's a true story of a fellow I know, and how this priest used to come into the boys' dormitory, and He'd just pick and choose the boys that he wanted to fondle that night. And nobody could say anything because no one would believe them anyways. It was a terror to some of the boys. Some of the boys, of course, couldn't sleep.
Escape is difficult, according to Thompson Highway.
I think there are elements essential of certain fundamental features of the Christian theology, which are at complete odds with native theology. It had a tremendous impact on our lives.
But the great issue is the land.
When you go to most native languages, they classify everything, or most everything, as being animate. Okay? Since the trees are animate, as I've said, they have spirit. Since they have spirit, that's the same as me.
How much land is really contested? I keep seeing different figures. They say that one figure says 64% of Canada really belongs to the Indian. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think 64% is correct. It's all of Canada. Why? Because...
All of Canada belongs to the Indian?
Yes. Why? Well, because if we can follow a recent Supreme Court decision that was decided back in 1983, referred to as the Guerin case, or commonly referred to as the Musqueam case, dealing with a small Indian tribe outside the city limits of Vancouver. In that court case, the Supreme Court of Canada said that the Indian source of title to the land is from time immemorial. Okay. Secondly, they said the underlying presumptive title in Canada belongs to the Indian.
Member of Manitoba Parliament, Elijah Harper, echoes a call for understanding.
When we talk about the treaties, that when our forefathers signed the treaties, it made us, in a sense, landowners, that we transfer the land over to the government. And that's why most of our great-grandfathers, when they signed the treaties, that their view was that they shared the land and resources with the newcomers that arrived here. That it should benefit everybody.
Basically, though, you see the frustration has been building up over the years now. Incidents like Okadu happened, and it'll probably continue happening until something happens to let off the steam.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
The all-new Mazda Protégé has more room than any car in its class. But what class is it? After all, it has more room inside than a Honda Civic, more room than a Nissan Altima, even more than a 5 Series BMW. So what class would you guess the new Protégé is in? Well, here's a hint. The all-new Mazda Protégé. But there's a surprise in every package.
The idea for our new Dow plant was simple. If we don't cause water pollution, there'll be no need to clean up water pollution. So Dow employed advanced technology that completely recycles the water we use within the plant instead of sending it back to the river. No one made us do it. We just did it. Is this kind of pollution prevention important for our future? I've got a couple of reasons that say yes, it is.
Dow lets you do great things.
Have you noticed that more and more people each year are going into the office less and less? In fact, this year, 40 million Americans will be going home to work in their own home offices. And for all these home professionals, Hewlett-Packard has now created the OfficeJet. It's a printer, a fax machine, and a copier all in one. And it's so affordable and so complete. All you need is an HP OfficeJet, and you're in business.
Thursday on the Discovery Channel. Can psychic powers solve crimes? On Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe. Shamans heal wounds and predict the future on Magical Worlds. Optical illusions on Movie Magic. Skyscraper cities on the Nozo. And virtual reality driving on Beyond 2000. Thursday beginning at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on the Discovery Channel.
Who says clothes make the man? By looking at me, it's easy to see how hair can make the difference.
If your hair is thinning, call Hair Club for Men and receive your free booklet about thinning hair. It covers transplants, weaving, minoxidil, and much more. You'll also find before and after photos of men like yourself who've benefited from Hair Club's advanced technology of adding hair in with your own hair without surgery. Now, whether working out, showering, or just blow drying your hair, it feels like your own.
So call for your free booklet, and you'll see how hair can make you look and feel your best.
The difference was the patent. Bell beat gray by 4 hours, so Bell is famous. Gray is forgotten. If you have an invention, call 1-800-838-IDEA for your free inventor's kit. That's 1-800-838-IDEA. And patent it before someone else does. Be famous like Alexander Graham Bell, not forgotten like Elisha Gray.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
We are the Iroquois, we're proud, we are strong. We've held on to our culture now, oh, for so
The misunderstandings were bound to lead to confrontation. In Canada, the place was Oka. It is the summer of 1990.
they know the way. Coming in.
What kind of people are you? There's children here and you're shooting tear gas at us. We're not armed and you're aiming your weapons at us. What kind of people are you?
This golf course, that's the root of all the evil. Right there. That is that's what's killing our people. These people here who don't give a shit are hitting a ball around the damn field.
The battle is over a golf course to be built on an Indian graveyard, and television images tell the world of a modern Indian war.
My orders are to come here and establish checkpoint Echo on this junction, and that's my order only.
It's the feeling of the young, and it's the knowledge of the old. There are many lessons in the legends that are told. Deep in the heart, deep in the mind, beneath the great white pine.
I think that it's important to bring out all the atrocities that have occurred, because not too many people know what actually happened to the natives of the Americas, beginning with the arrival of Columbus. Native people were almost completely annihilated, either through wars or through diseases that were brought by the outsiders. And so there's a great deal of documented atrocities that we hardly know about. And so this year, 1992, the Indian people, both from Central, South, and the Upper Hemisphere, are bringing those things out. And I think it's just a matter of letting people know what happened. And today, the Indian people, I think it's a miracle that we have managed to survive. We've paid a dear price for the right. It's a constant battle. Right from the beginning, the moment that Columbus set foot on this land, it's been a constant struggle to maintain our identity, our language, and our way of life.
Ojibwe artist Carl Beam.
And I try to carry on the notion of Columbus sailing as a voyage. And if you continue that notion, I would say that the voyage is still not over. We are still, in fact, voyaging. To what? I don't know.
So now, looking back 500 years after Columbus, are you optimistic that the life for the Aboriginal person is going to improve here?
Well, probably my best answer is that I think it's coming this way because I have met with world-renowned scientists who are asking about the Indian way, who are saying the present Newtonian approach to science, the Newtonian approach to Western culture is coming to an end. It's leaving many unanswered, many questions unanswered. We're looking for a new way to look at science. So I see scientists are groping around for a new way to explain nature. And they're finding out that the Indians have the answer. The latest example of that is about 2-3 years ago, a UN report on the environment came out. Well, the advice that came out of that UN report was, if you want to know anything about the environment, ask the Indian.
So the new way is the old way.
The new way is the old way. They just have to discover it.
The North American Indian has been redefining himself according to his tradition.
Till a white man came, everything has changed. Kind of lost our pride because they dragged into us some what they call it was they're making money, things that they make money, such things as the dope and the liquor and all that kind of stuff. That's when the Indians started to get lost, kind of lost their pride at one time at the early age, some of those kids and people. But I have a great hope that they're getting it back again.
We will return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
Some automobiles win design competitions. Some win races. The Toyota Camry Coupe has won the most coveted prize of all, the hearts of its owners. They see it as a reflection of Camry's unmatched reputation for quality, style, and refined performance. But most of all, they see it as a reflection of themselves. Introducing the redesigned Toyota Camry Coupe.
You love how new we're looking. You love how hot we're cooking. Yeah. You love the stuff we're made of.
There's a whole new spirit at Pizza Hut. That's why from now on, your pizza will be right or it's free. Guaranteed.
Legends, secrets, tales.
Timeless questions.
Conquests, journeys.
Relics of a forgotten past. Do we have the answers?
Rituals, rites. Fragments, documents, clues.
Where the search begins. Where truth is revealed. Where fact meets fiction. Terra X. Tuesdays at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. On the Discovery Channel.
Then, it's out there. A fortune in jewels, tons of gold. Circle the globe in search of your dreams with the Treasure Hunters. Tuesdays at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central on the Discovery Channel.
We now return to War Against the Indians on our special of the week.
Ron Hamilton is our witness and one of our guides in the woods.
If you look at all of time on this planet, and then you look at European contact here, it's just a sliver on the timeline. just a sliver. So then what about all this other stuff? Is it worth knowing? And I'd suggest that, like I said earlier, that we seem to be at a time when people who are immigrant here, people who are immigrants and living here, they really, in fact, do want to know. They do want to feel like they have some reason to be here. And I think that most Indian people really are very glad that all these European people are here. I certainly am. I don't feel bad that you're here. And so if you're going to be here, and if we're going to be glad that you're here, and you're going to be wanting to be here, your sense of being here can't be complete until you have some sense of my sense of being here, because I've been here a lot longer than you. There's my final note.
When you think that indigenous populations lived all over the world pretty happily and in harmony with their environment for thousands and thousands of years before the invaders came, and you compare that with what's happened in the last 500 years, it's bad news. We didn't create that bad news. The Ainu of Japan didn't create that bad news. The Maori of New Zealand didn't create that bad news. The white people did. And it's time for them to look at what they've done and how to change, how to improve the damage that they have done to the world and to the people of the world.
There's a word called Messiah. It seems like it fits in with the Hopi. The Great Spirit is Marsa, who gave us this knowledge, props, and warnings, and he breathed into it the sacred stone tablets he made for the Hopi, 2 sets of them, give it to them. And the white brother, who also is a Hopi, but his skin was much lighter, and two brothers received 2 sets of stone tablets. We still have 2 sets up in Horaibi, in Notvela, and the other was given to a white brother who took some of our people and went east direction around the other side of the world. And he was given special mission to record things, to invent things, and to make life beautiful, clean, and lasting on that side. Then he was to come back here, look for his younger brother who was still holding on to this land through prayer, meditation, ceremony, and fasting, and keep this land in the Western Hemisphere beautiful.
And we certainly can't live with technological society for another 60 years, because we won't last that long. I don't think anyone can own the land, and I don't think anyone does. They have title to that land, and that's all. But I think they've forgotten that the land owns us. We are the land.
Author Wilfred Peltier.
It takes a long time not to feel like an alien, a long time to feel at home, a long time to search out and discover who you are. But if you go all the way with that exploration, it takes you beyond race, beyond color, beyond class, beyond every kind of category, and you find that you belong to humanity, and that's who you are. When you no longer feel like an alien anywhere, you've come home. You know who you are. You found your family, the human family. And there is no such thing as the human family and others. Not anymore. As long as you leave anyone out, you are the alien. And that search for wholeness, for oneness, for who you are, has to continue. And the land is sacred. You don't live off it like a parasite. You live in it and it in you, or you don't survive. And that is the only worship of God there is. When you buy land, you are dispossessed by the act of purchase. The whole transaction is a lie that says, this is my land. It belongs to me. When the truth is that you belong to it.
The sea has lost much of its richness, and great areas of the land itself lie in waste. Perhaps it's time for the raven to start looking for another clamshell.
Perhaps truly it is we who became the dispossessed in the war against the Indians.
cannot let yesterday's tears blind our eyes to what we should do tomorrow. So with that, we have to determine what path we're going to follow, what road we're going to walk. It's a new day, it's a new age, and we have to know how we're going to paddle our canoe in the 21st century.
This is a sacred place where the Navajo come to pray.
Now, perhaps if we are to understand the story we've told tonight, the war against the Indians, it is our common history. We must listen to the prayer of another great Native person, Chief Dan George.
No Chicham. Tas nature can what quiet not disbehave. At same muchin, says I no muchin. Chow at chu. No Chicham. O great spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to the world. Hear me. I come to you as one of your many children. I am small and weak. I need your strength and your wisdom. May I walk in beauty. Make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things that you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may know the things you have taught your children, the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. Make me strong so that not to be superior to my brothers, but to be able to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me ever ready to come to you with straight eyes, so that when life fades as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame.
We are the Iroquois, we're proud, we are strong. We've held on to our culture now, oh, for so long. Though times have changed, we remain the same. We listen to our elders, they know the way. Ceremonies, social...
Coming up next on the Discovery Channel, a demented doctor and nurse use medicine to commit murder on Justice Files. Then take a test run in the world's smallest supersonic plane on X-Plane. Explore your world.
And it's the knowledge of the old. There are many lessons in the legends that are told. Deep in the heart, deep in the mind, beneath the great white pine. We are the Iroquois, we're proud, we are strong. We've held on to our culture now, oh, for so long. Though times have changed, we remain the same. We listen to our elders, they know the way.
Next, a doctor and nurse use medicine to commit murder on Justice Files. Then fly the world's smallest supersonic plane on X-Planes. And a Delta Wing fighter helps win wars on firepower. Coming up next on the Discovery Channel.